target spotted at 0 degrees west.
Welcome back, watch people. Now it's Sunday morning, the morning after that interview that I did last night with Anthony Farrer. Now, just so everyone knows, my build up to that interview started about 4 days ago. I had dozens of pages of script that I had to narrow down to around about 4. I had dozens of questions in front of me, hundreds of people giving me different advice, and about 1,000 emails telling me what I should and shouldn't say, what I should and shouldn't do. Now, on the day of the interview, I set up everything early in the morning, hours ahead of the broadcast, and during the day I ran through all the technical stuff 3 times. Everything appeared to be working perfectly. Now, by the time that 9 PM came around, I think I had about 2,500 people waiting for me to go live, and the watch world watching. Anthony was in front of me, behind the scenes, my family were watching, my friends were watching, and you were probably watching too, so no pressure on me whatsoever. Then, just as I entered the broadcast, it was apparent that Zoom just wasn't picking up the connection to my iPod, so I tried everything that I knew to get them working, and everything that had previously worked in the past, and everything has always worked in the past, but they just weren't having any of it last night. So by now, it's 9:05 and people are already running out of patience, saying that it was going to be a no-show, etc, etc. So I had to make a start and just hope for the best. And it left me in a rather difficult position of, look, the only way that interview was going to even take place was for me to listen to Anthony via the audio coming directly from my computer, and anyone that knows anything about live streaming knows that that can lead to an audio disaster. I had to listen to Anthony with the volume so low, otherwise you would have heard the feedback. There's a delay, which meant that you would have heard him twice instead of once. So I had to listen to his answers with the volume virtually on 0. And you might imagine that by now my mind was racing due to the frustration of the technical issue. The bottom line is, the start was a complete and utter nightmare. So at that stage, I really had 2 choices: call the whole thing off or push on. I decided to go ahead anyway. I didn't want to let anyone down. As for the interview itself, I still haven't had the chance to listen to Anthony's replies. Honestly, I have very little idea of what he actually said to me during the interview itself, which leads me on to the criticism that my approach to Anthony was too soft. Well, let me address that. The questions that I asked Anthony pretty much all came from you, the viewers. One YouTuber called me out earlier in the week demanding that I asked 5 key questions to Anthony, but he needn't have bothered because those questions were already on my list, and I think that I asked them all and more. And I think, looking back at some of the comments, a lot of people were there last night just to try and see a public execution with plenty of blood, with me shouting and screaming at Anthony and Anthony sweating buckets. Thing is, I wasn't there last night to draw anyone's blood for someone else's entertainment. What I was there for was to ask some very serious and difficult questions on behalf of the watch buying public, and for him to answer those questions in public. And my main concern was for those with a genuine vested interest in that interview, the public who had invested their own money into Anthony's business. And believe it or not, earlier in the week, this is how seriously I was taking this interview, I actually consulted a couple of experts in the field of interviewing ahead of all this to seek their professional direction. The advice from them was clear, and it was the same. Let the person being interviewed speak. Be calm, be respectful, and allow the subject to either dig himself in or out of the hole that he's alleged to be in. And that's the approach that I took. And those criticising me and accusing me of offering Anthony a softball should listen to that interview again, but perhaps with more of an open mind. I asked him some very difficult and some very pertinent questions. What I didn't do was argue with him. A, because that approach would have taken far too long. Every single question could have led into 10 more questions, and we didn't have 2 days to conduct the interview, and B, even if I'd wanted to argue with him, I could hardly hear his replies. So given the benefit of hindsight and the chance to do that interview again, what would I change? Well, do you know what? Not a lot. My approach is always to be respectful and to try and be professional. I'm happy with the questions that I asked and that they were the right ones. And for those that missed that point, here it is again. What I said really wasn't important. It's what Anthony said, and it was Anthony's answers that really mattered. I wanted him to tell you in his own words, and I hope I delivered that. Of course, look, the comment section are full of people who could have done it better than me, and the irony of that is that these are mostly coming from people who don't even use their real name, let alone put their face on a camera in front of thousands of people live across the world. And ahead of this interview, I knew full well that whatever I said, I was going to take a hammering, and that this was pretty much a no-win situation for me. I'm not stupid. But I took the decision to do it anyway. Someone had to, not for me, not for Anthony, but for the viewers and for the watch community. Anyway, look, personally, I've got to say that at this stage, I've had pretty much enough of this whole saga. If trying to bring people answers and entertainment that they want brings this sort of heat on me, then I have to ask myself, why do I even bother? But you know what? I do bother, and I know why I bother, because I do understand that the vast majority of people out there realise that, just like everyone else, I'm only human. Finally, I'd just like to thank everyone for their kind messages of support. It really is truly appreciated. Thanks for watching. We'll speak again soon.